Whoa. It's worse this side. It's so much better that side. Greetings to everyone. I'm not going to waste time with, saying who I am again. Thank you so much, Doc, for that amazing intro. So what I've done, I know that I'm known as a blabbermouth. So I've written everything down on a piece of paper so that I'm able to adhere to the timing constraints for my presentation today. But yeah, like it's been said, my name is Muzi Zuma, and I'm here to tell you a bit of my life growing up as a non-binary identifying individual in South African school systems. So my life at school was always about creating a space for myself because there wasn't any space available for me, and every space that existed in school was only for boys or girls. In classrooms, when teachers would give out group activities, boys were always with boys and girls with girls. And then there was me. There'd always be that awkward silence when I was left alone, very suspenseful, because the question on everyone's mind was, what is ma'am going to do with Muzi? Sometimes I was given a choice, and of course I chose the girl group, because not only did I know that I was always going to be given space in girl groups, but I also knew that no one would be made to feel uncomfortable or end up being called names because they agreed to work with a person like me. I also never felt like a plague when I was in girl groups. You see, every time I was forced to be in groups with boys, not only were my duties always academic, in that I was made to do the research, to do the writing, and to create the posters, but if any physical touch was needed, I was always the narrator because I could not dare touch a boy without exposing them to copious amounts of bullying. All this just because I was a child born with the purpose of being different. Other times, some teachers were fed up with the fact that I always had to be accommodated and would tell me that I must grow up and be a boy because I am no longer in kindergarten. My Afrikaans teacher in primary school leads this pack because she believed that she was too old to accommodate spoiled children. Now, I could not attend my Afrikaans lessons or change the subject, so I had to find another route so that I can evade feeling miserable in these lessons. I dedicated all my energy in becoming an excellent Afrikaans student in attempts of building a closer relationship with my teacher so that I could create an opportunity to explain to her that I was not being spoiled. I was just trying to be me, and that was different. I was not being intentionally difficult, as others would so assume, but there was but there was also not much I can do about how difficult it was for me to be me in school, and that was different. I didn't imagine this to be this difficult. It was extremely difficult for me to grow up in a system that was only for pink and blue. I not only became a top achiever in Afrikaans, but I had also softened the hardest teacher at school, and this changed our lessons for the better, not only for me, but for all of us in my class, particularly the marginalized young black boy. I used this approach with all my teachers because I then realized that being silent as a different child would always be to my detriment, and that did not sit quite right with me, even as a child. What should have made my life at school a bit easier made it even worse. When I finally got my teachers to understand me, and thus they started to create room for me and my voice in their classrooms, I got bullied even more and started being called these kind of words: a teacher's pet, a goody-goody tissues, and believe it or not, in primary, an ass licker. On top of already being called gay, morphe, faggot, istabane, coconut, and ntombimfana, girl, boy, to name just a few. This did not affect me as much as it should have, because by then I had accepted that being bullied, being judged, and discriminated was the price that I had to pay to be seen, to be heard, and to be acknowledged. This was also when my academic strides started being profiled, and that my own peers started saying that I was not getting the grades I was getting through my diligence and hard work, but because teachers always treated me specially. Because in the early 2000s, being a multifaceted black boy was obscene and unheard of. And then there was sports. I was never chosen for anything in the sporting fields. I mean, I was allowed in the teams because they needed to do something with me, but I was always just a reserve on the bench that was never used. My coaches would literally cringe when they needed to call me into matches, and they would not even hide it. This broke me into pieces. But after wiping my own tears and patting my own back, I set out to become excellent in basketball, hockey, soccer, athletics, and rugby, because I was not about to become a for emergencies purposes only kind of learner. I did not want my coaches to choose whether to use me or not, so I built the skills and ensured that me making the team was never a question. This is a picture from one of my most amazing moments, and you'll see I've zoomed in. It does say first team hockey, but this is a representation of how hard it was for a non-binary identifying individual to not only get to first team, but to go through all the leagues before you get to first team. I will always be extremely proud that I not only achieved that, but I did it whilst wearing a first team jersey in all my sports, and it did not stop there. You see, being different meant that I was not confined to just the boys only list when it came to cultural, sporting, and extracurricular activities. And I took that as an opportunity. I took the opportunity to do extra, to fuel me in becoming extraordinary. And like represented in this image here, I celebrate finishing my school race as the most awarded learner at school, primary and high school, and I achieved that with receiving provincial and national full colors too. I must add, though, that the reason you don't see a first team rugby picture there is because when I was growing up entering the senior phase, I knew that as much as I needed to work hard as a different person, I was not willing to put my physical body at that risk. But I did find a way to get the first team rugby jersey, and that was through joining the first aid team and being diligent as a first aid team member to be chosen to be the first aid team for the first team rugby match. So I still got the rugby jersey just without doing the rugby. Yeah. So you see, I could have just accepted being the nothing that society viewed me as. I could have been a nobody at school and blend in with the background. But that also did not sit well with me because I wasn't a nobody. And my parents were not working hard to pay exorbitant fees for me to become a nobody. Whatever my differences were, I was and still am a somebody, and I was going to be treated as such. I also wanted to develop and grow just as much as the other boys and girls. I wanted to excel. I wanted awards, and I wanted my name on all honors boards that I could get to. I wanted my name engraved on all trophies, and I wanted it known that an authentic child did that, so that all those that came after me knew that they could too. And so I studied the system and found places for this child that liked purple and not pink or blue. I worked tirelessly to excel academically and in all extracurriculars because I needed to switch the script of my life, and to achieve that, my difference could no longer be my weakness. And so I took it and I made it my strength. I did not mind standing out, but I knew that I had to work damn hard to stand out, and so I did just that. I'd like to bring in a bit of context with this picture. In the year 2005, I moved from attending a very established private school because my mother, my grandmother, and my two aunts were involved in a car accident. Until that point, I was always attending boarding establishment schools for the reason that my parents wanted me to be as far away from the local kasi culture as much as I can so that they could protect me and prevent me from becoming another statistic like my older brothers had become. Those statistics being substance abusers, those statistics being growing up to become a thief. But when I was in grade 8 in 2005, I decided to no longer fear society and no longer fear the system. I almost lost the life of my mother whilst being at school, and that also didn't sit quite right with me. And so I returned to Maritzburg to become a day scholar. And the one rule that I had for my parents is that my school had to be IEB because I had grown accustomed to the IEB system. The only school that was available for me at that point was a school that I won't mention for protection purposes, but it was a school that was a growing high school, private, yes, but it was growing, in that it didn't have extracurricular activities that allowed me to be as free, adventurous, and explorative as I could be. And that's when I decided to champion and pioneer change and go to the principal's office and demand there to be an introduction of more extracurriculars. And I was very particular about the extracurricular activities that I was presenting to the principal, in that I wanted them to know, I'm going to make a few examples, SCA, which is the Student Christian Association, Interact. The reason I wanted to start SCA is because I wanted the world and my school and my peers to know that you don't need to be a particular gender or a particular sex for you to believe in Source, for you to believe in Christ. And it was important that we understood that we can move that gospel forward together. Interact was very important for me to start because I also wanted to send a message indirectly to my boy peers in encouraging them that you do not need to be a girl in order for you to do good for your community, to do good for your school, or to do good for your family. So that's just a bit of context there. But even in that context, I remember the one thing that pushed me to go to the principal's office was that I felt ostracized. I felt like for the first time in my life, there was nothing for me to do because I found pretty much a basic system. And even though you can still see that as much as there were boys and girls who were comfortable with the system, who were comfortable with the binary and the uniform, I still decided and chose to be that boy who was not afraid of smiling in class photos. And I knew that extracurriculars, like you were saying, were the platform that we could use to develop or to build an identity back in school. So that's just the bit of context that I wanted to give. Ooh, sorry. So yeah, I did not know about gender growing up, nor did the adults around me, because the only label they identified me with was gay. And I, for the longest time at school, did not feel like I identified with this label growing up, because it was always associated with sex and liking boys. And that was not why I was being different. I was not being different because I liked boys or I wanted them to have sex with me. I was different because I was different, and I was always just being me. I mention this because the world and those in opposition of a non-binary and gender-fluid world need to stop misconstruing gender, sexuality, and sexual orientation. I was a child who just wanted to be a child, and school and its systemic defects did not even allow me that. But there were days which were my favorites at school, and these were special occasion days. Days like Civies, days like Polar Bear Day, and other days of that nature. These were my favorite days, where I could put the uniform to rest and be creative. I knew that I had very few of these, so I wanted them all to be meaningful. Everything that I wore had to have a message, because I knew that because I was wearing it, there was always going to be someone who was going to stop me and ask me why. And even though I wanted my answer to always be because I wanted to, I was very aware that we were living in a society that was needing education. So I took that as an opportunity to educate whoever was asking me why my particular choice of fashion. You'll see some of the pictures where I'm wearing the striped pink gown. This was from Polar Bear Day, which is a day like the winter solstice, and we swim the lap in the pool because it's cold. And I had arrived to school wearing track pants and a sports jersey, which I actually got while I was in Nottingham at Nottingham Blue Coat School. And I arrived to school wearing that, and when I got to school, the teachers were on some Muzi, the children are complaining and they're saying that we're always accommodating you because you are at school and you're not wearing pajamas. So I reached out to one of my girls and I took the gown and I wore that gown, and I then educated them and I said, I'm not wearing pajamas because when I go shop for pajamas, there aren't any pajamas for me. And this was the only way that I was allowed to come into school. You'll also see in this right-hand corner, this is from Civi's Day with the red tie. You see, I'm that unique child in that I don't believe that it was a mistake for me to be born with the birth gender that I am. It was not a mistake for me to be born as a boy. I am very content with being born as a boy, and that's why I identify as non-binary, because I like living my life having the best of both worlds. So I wanted to use my opportunities at Civi's Day to send a message out to the world that I'm not being feminine because I'm running away from my masculinity. I actually love the male fashion, but I will do it my way up until there's a character that there's an aisle or a store that identifies with me. And also, I've included 2 pictures that we had on our gender swap day. And I think this is important for us to acknowledge that there is a sense of freedom that exists in schools. It's just not enough. And yeah, so you can imagine that doing this was not an easy thing to do. I got commentary from leaving the gate at home to coming back. And growing up black and different in a conservative Zulu city, unfortunately for me, most of it was not nice. But I would not have been able to do it. I would not have been able to receive everything whilst remaining strong and unshaken if it was not for the support system I had going through it. And this is my girl appreciation post, because I would not have made it if it wasn't for my girls, those who I have posted, and those and the many more that I could not. Thank you. And this is why, for me, feminism is important, because I owe it to every single girl out there to fight for them as much as these girls fought for me when I was in school. And so I accepted very early on that I was given a blank canvas when I was born. It did not come with any guidelines, markings, or a set of instructions. And today, I celebrate this very brave, this very strong, multifaceted black boy who decided to just be a child. I am thankful to my parents for grabbing the opportunity to raise this wild child and just ran with it. I am grateful to my family for supporting and shielding me as I grew into being myself. It really took a village. At home, I was always given space. My voice always mattered. My family did not care about my accent or my command of the English and Afrikaans language. They celebrated it. And so I decided to do the same and not care about the negative commentary I was receiving because of this. And that's when I started celebrating it. And through celebrating it, I needed to be comfortable being the center. My family, being my #1 support system, my biggest cheerleaders, was truly impactful in my life because it gave me something to work towards. I have always wanted to make them proud. And so to those times when I was left alone to form my own group, I am glad that I chose to let my work speak for itself. Through just being me, sharing my thoughts and interpretations of school and life, I was able to start attracting positive attention and admiration from my peers. I had to make every single moment impactful. It was important for me to, though imperfect, be a sound representation of difference so that I could encourage, even if it was just one person, to also be different, to also be great, and to be authentic versions of themselves too. And then there was another special occasion day, which is our 40 days. And one of the celebrations we had, celebrating our last days of school, we were allowed to redesign or change our uniform and wear our own versions to school. We were all our happiest because we were not confined to the system and its codes for that day. And it will always be a sweet memory for me, and I will always be in awe of how free my peers were and how differently they expressed themselves when they were not being what society stipulated them to be. That joy, that excitement is what we owe our children, and they should feel it every single day at school and not just on special occasions. This was so important for me because this day reminded me that I was not alone. To see girls who felt comfortable to go to a private Christian school to wear shorts and grey slacks on that day, to wear the boy uniform as boldly as they did, and for me to finally get rid of those grey slacks and have my grandmother make them into grey skinnies. Literally, this was the best day of my life at school. And that's when I realized that school also was an important moment for me to break free. This is why I have decided to work towards joining the table of academic philosophers championing such a pivotal movement. I think that it is high time we move beyond the boys and the girls dynamic because there is so much more to us than our chromosomes. It's important that we break free from the prison of the pink and blue dynamic because not only are there 7 colors, but there is a kaleidoscope more that we can create from that 7. When I was struggling with my identity in high school, I chose to start modeling and hide behind that industry while I explored who I was and who I wanted to become. It was easier for me to tell people that I was wearing eyeliner because I am from a shoot than trying to explain to them that yes, even as a boy, I liked wearing eyeliner. And I grew up in the time of America's Next Top Model, and I'm glad that through that show, society at least understood that as the model, you were never the artist, and you were always the art. And that's why I chose to hide behind makeup, because I could explore and wear black nails and wear eyeliner. And whenever I was questioned, I always said that I've just come from a shoot. And whenever they questioned that, I always said I'm a model. So when I get to a shoot, I do what the artist, the designer, or whoever is asking me to do, and I don't have a choice. That was the only way that I could allow myself to explore, to discover more of me, and to still try to be a human in a very crippling system. And I really want to say, as I draw to the end, that it does take society. And that is why I say that I am a socially constructed body, because it literally took society and its defects for me to become who I am. I now know that my existence and expression of self no longer needs to be in response to anything, to anyone, or to any system. When I realized that I can do so many more of the things society said that I could not do or access because I was a boy, that moment was life-changing for me. Especially because when I finally realized that I no longer needed anybody's permission to be me, I finally became me. And I used this slide to show that I was able to become me without the use of hormone replacement therapies or without the need of any gender reassignment surgeries. And this is why I am presenting my life as a body of work to speak for the gender non-conforming, to speak for the non-binary, so that we can save our children and our young boys and girls from going the HRT route, because that's what society would allow them. And going the HRT route is the only way that they could feel accepted. I feel that is time that ends. And so, when I finally realized that I'm both the artist and the art in my life, I decided to take that brush and every single resource made available to me and paint a masterpiece. Growing up as a non-binary child was tough, but it forced me to go deep within and find the love that the world never gave me in myself, so that I stopped living like I was trying to earn it every single day. This pilgrimage of self-discovery, though harrowing and dark, allowed me to find my light and thus find the Christ in me. I have chosen to swap my chains with pearls so that I can wear my scars like jewels. And I've decided to take all the dirt that has been thrown on me just for being different and bloom where I have been planted. In conclusion, I would like for us very briefly to go on a quick trip. I want you to think back when you were a child and you fell in the playground field and scraped your knee. I was going to open this up to the floor, but I think because of time, I'll just continue. I'm sure the one thing that you wanted after falling and scraping your knee, the one thing that you wanted first, and the one thing you wanted the most was support. You did not care how it came. You just wanted it. And more importantly, what you wanted was acknowledgement of the fact that you were hurt and that it hurt. You wanted the love that this support and acknowledgement came with. And of anything else that could have mattered, the love as a child was what you needed the most. And that's the love that we as educators need to always be giving to our children. The love is what you wanted and needed the most, not who it came from, is what I wanted to say. I've been that child. And when I fell and scraped my knee, no one came instantly to my attention because they did not know how to instantly respond. Do they say sorry and hug me as they would with girls? Or do they tap me on the shoulders and tell me to toughen up as they would with boys? Only moments later did someone come to my aid, because first they had to think about whether to approach me as a boy or girl before realizing that they had to approach me because I was still just a child. It's 2024, and I do not think that any child should experience that pain, and that's why I say boldly that it ends with me. Being in a room with people who want to change this empowers me because it makes me realize that it is possible, that we can truly end up living in a world where children are encouraged to just be children, that all children can receive support instantly, irrespective of their sex, their gender, or their sexual orientation, and that they can receive instant support irrespective of who it comes from. This requires us all to be much better adults and do better for our children, because they are who we are all doing this for. You do not need Google Scholar to tell you that a child's life depends on it. You have me. I am currently unemployed and can confirm that urgent amendments are needed because it does not get better after school. It gets worse, and we can do something about it and should do something about it so that children do not give up one day like me and choose poverty over trying to earn a living in an impenetrable system. I finally had to put myself first because I was at my breaking point, and this time I chose myself. I chose my sanity, and still I say no one deserves to ever be at such a crossroads. Growing up, when I was struggling to find my identity, confused by the rainbow acronym and its vast offerings, I also chose to hide behind the beauty industry because there, who I am would never be questioned. Not only did I become a globally renowned makeup artist, but in doing so, I also got to show that boys can and do wear makeup too. As an unemployed full-time student who lives in Pietermaritzburg, which is an hour away from campus, every day I go live on TikTok and I do live makeup tutorials and beg for donations so that I am able to put petrol in my car and show up every day to my purpose, because I now realize that being born different was my calling, but being different is my purpose, to show that it can be done. And that's one thing that I want to say that growing up as a non-binary child taught me. It gave me character. It gave me vigor to fight. And that's why I'm willing to continue doing every single thing I can, scrummaging for every single cent, so I show up to all my lectures so that I am able to be successful in my academic pursuit, because I know, and I can tell you this for sure, that the lives of our children depend on it. I will always be grateful to my past because it has shown me that I am a fighter. And that is why I will continue to fight, to continue creating spaces for all children. I do not think any child should go through what I've gone through, and it pains me that there are still so many wallowing away in this very pain today. That is why my hand is up, because I want to continue doing something. This time, I am not going to hide behind any industry, but I will be standing on my truth. I am going to offer my life as a socially constructed body, to help the world in fully understanding the magnitude of damage caused by its binary system and its defects, and boldly join those working towards finding solutions to neutralize it. When I heard this quote that says, "Nothing changes if nothing changes," I listened and I decided to change, with the hopes that the world will too. We do not grow up to be boys and girls. We grow up to be adults. And I think it's important that we start being better adults for our children so that they can grow up to become adults that will do the same for their children. And just to take the last 2 minutes and not continue, these 3 images I chose because, like I said, my context is being Zulu and living in a location in a very remote Gussie and Pietermaritzburg. And spirituality and Christianity have been one of those institutions that I grew up being told that I'm not able to access because of my sexual orientation, because of my sexuality. And that's why I speak with vigor and I speak with passion when I speak about my spirituality. Because as a Zulu identifying black boy, I was able to embark on a pilgrimage that society told me I will never be able to access. And I stand today, 3 years later, as a traditional healer, as a royal healer, as a spiritual doctor and alchemist. And for me, the most important thing is that we do not need to respond to our oppressors with oppression. Because I tell you that there are fathers, old fathers, who come with the ignorance, who come with the questions, who come with the slurs. But every single time they knock on my door, seeking help from Muzi Zuma, I don't know how, but they are able to see my heart. They're able to see me as a person, and they're able to know that they can get help from me too, even though I'm not a stereotypical boy, even though I'm not a stereotypical black boy. So in closing, I just wanted to come and say that to anybody who's wondering what non-binary, gender-fluid children grow up to be, they grow up to be this. They grow up to be me, an honest student who is determined to change the world for the better in gender and education. Thank you.